Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Newcastle have put an end to their winless run. They've beaten Everton 2-0 down at Goodison Park. I'm joined by Lee Ryder. He's just about to make his way back to Tyneside. But Lee, a much improved performance, a great 3 points, a much needed 3 points. Just sum up what you witnessed there on Merseyside.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it was just better. You looked around the pitch. They started confidently. They seemed to have a purpose about what they were doing. They seemed organised. Everybody seemed to be reading from the same page. But most importantly for me was probably the sort of the diamond system that they had going on there with Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser and Almiron behind them and Hayden in midfield, playing that holding role to a T. When they lined up, I thought they'd sort of gone for the same sort of five at the back formation, but it was completely different. Something we haven't seen. They were unrecognisable, and fair enough. Steve Bruce gets his first win for a long time as manager, but you have to obviously give some credit to Graham Jones as well.
It was. It must be nice for when you're doing your player ratings that you've actually got quite a few people to give high ratings to. Callum Wilson, you grabbed the brace, so you got the 10 out of 10 mark. But there were so many players across the pitch who just put in a different performance to what we've seen in the past 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, normally the 10 out of 10 is reserved for someone who gets a hat trick or something like that. But I just thought Callum Wilson today, unbelievable, chasing everything down. Could have had a couple before he even scored the first one. Hit the post in the second half. But I thought he was very worthy of 10 out of 10. But there was so many other contenders, really. So, he's not alone. There was so many that could have won man of the match. But yeah, as you say, it's a welcome change.
And really nice to see Jamal Lewis as well have a good game. We've got Liam Simpson there on YouTube just pointing out it was a good performance. And he's had a tough ride of late, hasn't he? Lewis been left out the side and the form hasn't been overly great, but he put in a good performance today.
Yeah, he did. And I think it just capped his display, didn't it? That ball through for Wilson. It wasn't the best first touch from Wilson, but that's what a class player can do. Gets it under control eventually and finds the corner of the net. But yeah, Jamal Lewis, this summer come in, big expectations from him. Hasn't hit the heights all the time. I don't think it's through the want of trying, because he's certainly someone who gets on with the job. But I thought he was very good today.
And a good performance as well from Shelvey. I mean, we said there's so many different performances, but Shelvey seemed to suit that new kind of system. That three across the midfield alongside Hayden and Hendrick.
Yeah, again, another one who maybe has benefited from a fresh voice coming in this week. I think you can't overplay it because it's a coach coming in, but they look different. There's no doubt about it. And players sometimes respond to different voices, to different ideas. Just somebody sometimes putting an arm around them, and we've seen that at the final whistle with Graham Jones with his arm around Callum Wilson. That obviously he had a little quiet word with him before the game, but hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
And Wilson, after the game, he said he was disappointed not to get a hat-trick. Obviously, you mentioned there he hit the post. That is the attitude, isn't that we want? I mean, if you're a parent and your little kid's playing football, week in, week out, outside of lockdown, that's the kind of attitude you'd be pointing them towards, because it's refreshing to hear that. He scored 2, he's had a great game, man of the match, and he's saying, you know what, I really am quite disappointed because I wanted the third.
Yeah, and I think he's probably cut a disappointed figure in recent weeks where he's been starved of good service. And, Steve Bruce, his tactics have left a lot to be desired in recent weeks. There's no doubt about it. But today we've seen something different. Ultimately, he's the manager. It's his team. But at the end of the day, I think that formation today really caught Everton out and probably caught a lot of the fans out. They weren't expecting that today. But it's the right result for Newcastle United.
And one of the main tweaks, I think, was the pressing. They pressed Everton really high. Do you think that was something that maybe Graham Jones has come in and said, this is what we'll do from the start? Because it was a notable difference to what we'd seen in recent games where they were actually, pressing and hurrying the defence, and Everton were forced into making, a few rush clearances.
Yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? When Everton had a goal kick, the two front men were straight on the full-backs. They were locked onto them. But Almiron just playing with that freedom, that sense of freedom that he hasn't had, and he will benefit from this performance today as well. I think, as I say, he was everywhere on the pitch today, and hopefully, Newcastle can take this forward and just put it beyond doubt. They shouldn't be getting sucked into a relegation zone. They've got good players. Crystal Palace next, and we see what happens there. But it certainly eases the pressure, lifts morale around the place, breeds confidence, and hopefully, they can go on a run now. Where they've had the bad run. That was the one little positive that I was kind of taking before this, was they've got the bad run out the way. They got it early enough in the season, and it didn't come towards the end when the nerves start kicking in and you do get sucked in the relegation zone. But there's a healthy buffer there now.
What was Steve Bruce like in the press conference afterwards? We've probably all seen the TV bit of it, but what was he like with the reporters afterwards?
Well, there was sound problems with the press conference, so it was difficult to hear everything that he said. Obviously, some problems at Goodison Park, but what I did hear was, I think he played a relatively straight bat. I don't think we didn't see him gloating with that. That's not what we want to see at the moment. It's about Newcastle United, not Steve Bruce getting one over journalists and pundits and things like that. So it was a win for the team. It was a win for the fans, and more importantly, your main man Callum Wilson has got into double figures, and we're just coming out of January. So it's one that I'm sure Callum Wilson will enjoy tonight.
How big of a miss will Jamal Lascelles be? Steve Bruce seemed to say he was out for a couple of weeks. Maybe he limped off in the second half there. To lose your captain again, it's a shame, but it does put a bit of a down on what was a brilliant day for Newcastle.
Yeah, it is a nightmare for Jamal Lascelles getting that injury. But there's players that can come back in. Kieran Clark, Fernandez is getting back to fitness. Paul Dummett is coming back soon. So if there's one area where they are well stocked, it's definitely centre back.
And just finally, what did you make of Graham Jones's presence on the touchline? He was shouting instructions. You mentioned there he'd give Callum Wilson a bit of a hug at full time. What did you make of the way he handled himself on the touchline during the game?
Yeah, I think he did very well. I mean, with interest, I watched the warm-up, and you could see the players just had a little bit of a spring in the step, and hopefully it's one where, they can move forward now with it, confidence in the bag, clean sheet in the bag, and obviously they created a lot of chances as well. So much to be positive about tonight.
Definitely. Well, we'll let you get off there. I know you've got a long journey back up to Tyneside, so safe travels. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks.
So there was Lee Ryder just on his way back from Goodison Park. Really important win there. Had Newcastle lost, it would have been their worst run of the century. That shows you just how bad of a run Newcastle have been on. Great to see Callum Wilson getting in the goals. A wonderful header. It reminded me a bit of Gary Speed, the way he rose and twisted and put it into the far corner. He hit the post. Really good bit of play that when he was set up by Miguel Almiron to round Jordan Pickford, and then he hit the post, and then he finally got the second, which put the game to bed. But in truth, Newcastle, in previous games when they've had a lead, I know that hasn't been many, you've been a bit worried about the opposition, but Newcastle never really looked like conceding the victory. They looked solid, and it's only one game, and Newcastle need to build on it. We need to see consistency. But there was a notable difference, as I said there to Lee, in the way they played. They were pressing. There was little triangles of passing. There was really some nice passages of play where they were just keeping the ball, but they were looking to go forward at the same time. And they were kind of only going backwards when they needed to, rather than not having that confidence to pick a pass, not having that confidence to go forward. And it was lovely to see. It was a nice performance. It was good to watch Newcastle actually look a bit threatening. had that passion, had the fight they've been lacking of late, but they made it a contest. And you went in at half time thinking, Newcastle should be ahead here. Pickford tip to Callum Wilson, header onto the bar in the first half. And Everton, for all their great players, they're flying high in the Premier League. They were quite poor, but you've got to beat what's in front of you. They had some decent moments, some decent passages of play themselves. But apart from one or two chances, I mean, Darlow had to save one from Rodriguez, but didn't really have to do too much as a whole in the game. Punched a few clearances, a few crosses clear, but wasn't really under threat as he has been in recent months. So something's clicked, something's changed. We'll watch with interest the Crystal Palace game next week to see if they can build on that. You're hoping they do. That confidence, though, that they'll get from this win is huge. Really is. It's the double as well over Everton for the first time since Sir Boy Robson was in charge. So you're going back to 2001 for that, which is quite a journey back. But great to see Newcastle, win, take some 9 points above the relegation zone. I know Fulham were winning the last time I checked, so it proves how big of a win this was for Newcastle, and hopefully the confidence not just of Wilson to get back in amongst the goals. He hadn't scored since that Fulham draw up at St James's Park back on, I think it was the 19th of December. But it'll be, Shelvey, Hendrick, Hayden, Lascelles, even though he was injured halfway through the game. Clark came on, had a decent game. Cher, again, brilliant. Manquillo came in and did really well. So there's lots of performances from players that we haven't seen really. Them performances have been missing, and hopefully that gives the confidence for them to build on, take them into that game against Crystal Palace and just put this to bed, this issue of relegation. Let's win the next couple of games, hopefully, and get it out of the possibility that Newcastle could be relegated, because it's not what any of us want. We're really happy to see Steve Bruce's side get the victory. Really good performance. And that's probably my final word, is what I'm going to say, is it's nice to see Newcastle United get a victory where they deserve it, where it could have been more. They've not scraped it. How many times have we said Darlow's pulled off 3 or 4 fantastic saves? We said it against Crystal Palace, didn't we? We said it against West Brom when they won those games. Here, it was all Newcastle, and it was Pickford in the other end who kept the scores down for Everton. So brilliant to see, and that's the difference for me. It was a victory they deserved. It was a victory where they could have got more goals, and that hopefully will give them a huge confidence boost going into a busy period of games. And we look forward to Crystal Palace on Tuesday. So in the meantime, head over to Chronicle Live. You can read all of the match report, the player ratings, the reaction, all the reaction from tonight's game, this afternoon's game. Stay safe, and please remember to like and subscribe on whichever platform you're watching or listening from. Thank you very much.